Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Let's start here. Let's start with a label. My name is Dan Beverley, and I am an executive performance coach. And that's high performance, by the way. I tried the low performance coaching business. It didn't really take off. This morning, I'd like to share with you a few things that I've come to know really help us to create the kind of mind shift that leads to our next level of success, whatever our definition of that might be. And let's take note of the language right away there, to create a mind shift, not to react to the outside world, but to create from within. And it's a mind shift. When I think of success, my first instinct, my first thought is to go to the thinking. Mind shift is a thought. It's an insight, a new way of seeing the world, a new way of being in the world. And in that moment and with that thought, I come to learn that I can really shift my mind, just like I can shift the gears on my car. So I'm driving along and the engine is purring in its current gear, and I start to accelerate and the engine starts to whine, and it lets me know it's gone as far as it can in this current gear, and now I need to shift up. And I can do that in a moment in time, and so it is with my mind. And it's really useful for me to know that information when I'm thinking about success in work, in career, in life, whatever your goals are, to know that I can shift my mind. The thinking really is the most important thing. All of my success begins with a thought. We don't need any help at all to stay stuck. We can at times be very, very good at it, and it's that I'd like to talk about first. We are all high-performance machines, and we're high-performance machines thanks to this thing we call the brain, our very own bio-supercomputer that's been designed literally over millennia to get me exactly what I want. And so as a high-performance machine, with my very own bio-supercomputer, which is behaving entirely according to design, but occasionally suffers from some errant programming. I wouldn't say that we don't only need help to stay stuck. I wouldn't say that we can be very, very good at staying stuck. I would say that we choose to stay stuck. What do you mean, I'm choosing to stay stuck? Here I am, Dan, coming to you in my moment of need for help and support, and you're telling me I'm choosing this reality that I'm currently faced with? Well, yes I am, because at some level, yes you are. Well, they show up during the day as really quite common thoughts and behaviours. Procrastination, that is not starting. Over-preparation, that's not finishing. Comparing myself with others, with myself with outside circumstance. Downplaying talents, holding back opinions. All of these, I mean those two in particular, but all of these I would categorise as hiding strategies. So many of my clients use exactly that word. I find myself hiding. I've had about 6 or 7 clients use totally independent of one another, use exactly the same words. Dan, I'm hiding. I need a speak up strategy. I'm hiding behind email. I'm hiding in meetings. I'm hiding, I'm stepping back from opportunity. Now let's notice something straight away about the imposter syndrome, how inwardly destructive it is. Because I have those dominant thought patterns that we just saw on the previous screen, and now I have these behaviours that are a result of that. But these behaviours feed back in to my imposter syndrome. As an example, over preparation. Let's say I am an imposter, but I have a performance event coming up. And so I prepare and I prepare and I over prepare, and as a result my performance event goes really well. And somebody says to me, well Dan, you must be really pleased with that. Well yeah, but you know, I just worked hard. And once again, I grab my achievement and I push it out. Nothing to do with me or my skill or my talent. I just worked hard and I externalized the reason. So we have this negative thought cycle going on. And I want to be able to spot that. You know what, we could talk for a long time about what imposter syndrome is and how it shows up and get into the detail. And a previous version of myself from some years ago would love to do that. My prefrontal cortex, my brain where thinking, thought comes to me as language, loves the detail, loves to show off how much I know. But is that really going to help me? And when it comes to success, I want to focus on what is practical, what is functional, what works. I'm going to share now with you 3 mind shifts and some accompanying strategies that my clients use to great success, that I am using right now, and that you can use as you go forward to create for yourself the success that you would want. This is my first mind shift. I want to start by noticing the labels that are out there. But that on its own is not enough, because if I just know my labels, all I've done is given myself another reason to stay stuck. Now in coaching, I could talk for a long time about the many virtues of coaching, how it completely transforms lives. But in the end, it comes down to 2 things that we do, that I do. I promote awareness and I promote responsibility. That's basically what coaching is. And I do those things in equal measure. So having brought into awareness some of these labels, I now need to take responsibility for the treatment that I give this label. Let's take imposter syndrome as an example. I could see that as data, as information, as just words, but I don't do that. I grab it with both hands and, well, I was going to say I stick the label onto myself, but I don't do that. I brand it. I brand it onto my very identity. I try to make it part of my personality. I try to make it part of my DNA. And in doing that, I try to give it a sense of permanence. And there's a payoff for that, because now I am totally devoid of responsibility. And my life is a choiceless process. And you can hear the victim in that. You can hear how small I am living my life if I do that. But there is a payoff, because now it's not my fault. I'm an imposter. What do you want from me? So I want to notice my labels, and then I want to take responsibility for the treatment that I give it. And from there, I can see what the imposter syndrome and every other self-imposed limitation really is. It is a passing thought. It is a temporary behavior. It is a choice in the moment. And when I see it like that, two things happen. The first is I realize I can shift that. I can think different thoughts. I can execute different behaviors. I can make different choices in the moment. But I also come to notice that my label is a story. And it's a story that I myself have to keep going. It has no energy except that which I give it. Practice. And when you see this word, you go, practice? Why is that a secret weapon? Because as grown-ups, as adults in the commercial, corporate, professional world, we just don't think of this. Now, if a child comes to you, son, daughter, niece, nephew, young child of a friend of yours, and says, I want to learn to ride a bike. I want to learn to play the piano. I want to get better at some skill that my PE teacher tells me I need for some sport I want to get into. We don't hesitate. We say, oh, it's practice. That's all it is. It's simply a question of practice. But when we're grown-ups, a client will say to me, so Dan, I want to get better at speaking to my team. I want to get better at pitching a really very cool but slightly disruptive product idea to my leadership. I want to get better at handling really difficult, tough conversations with a tricky customer who has a legitimate beef. I want to get better at all those things. And I say to them, that's a great set of skills. I'd love to have that in the toolkit. Now tell me, what's your current practice for that? And they're a bit like, practice? What do you mean? And they discount it. Here's an important point. Make sure it's an action-based practice. So back to my analogy of the child who wants to ride a bike. So my sons come to me, as they did, each in their turn, and said, Dad, I want to learn to ride a bike. And I said, that is awesome. We said, that's awesome, totally love it, totally into that. And we went and bought them a bike, each, not one to share. So we went and bought them a bike. What we did not do is go and buy them a book about riding a bike. Dad, I want to learn to ride a bike. Excellent, son. Here's Bradley Wiggins' latest autobiography. Go read that. Now, in that story, obviously that sounds like a total nonsense. But notice that's exactly what we do. I want to get better at public speaking. I'm going to go buy a book about public speaking. Now, no. Actually, I'm really serious about this. So I'm going to buy 3 books about public speaking. And we know what's going to happen with those books. They're going to sit on the shelf. Now, so have in mind your favorite book. Have in mind your favorite movie. Have in mind your favorite piece of music. And now imagine if the author of that book, the maker of that film, and the composer of that piece of music had said, you know what, I'm going to leave it. What do you want to do with this thinking? Now, some of you might say, this is interesting, I like it, and I'll walk out that door and I will reflect on it, I will think of it, and I probably won't. And I respect that because, of course, I must. We all can choose our own priorities. Interesting word, priority. It only became a plural relatively recently in terms of language history, priorities. So maybe it's not a priority, and that's entirely fine. But for some of you, you will want to make use of this. You might want to make use of this. So I'd like to offer you 3 distinctions that you can use in the moment to help you to create your success. And what's a distinction? Well, I use distinctions all the time in my coaching. Distinctions are pairs of complementary but deeply contrasting ideas that really that show me a different way of seeing the world. And they're not surface level tips and tricks. They're not complex strategies that I have to learn and practice and get into. Once you see it, and it's yours forever. So 3 distinctions. The first is information versus transformation. I mentioned earlier, if I want to learn to speak, I go and buy a book. Notice how we love to study success rather than just go be successful. So use this. Am I informing myself? Am I just gathering information? Or am I transforming myself? Am I working towards transformation? This is a really important distinction, and it's a choice in the moment. We all know when we're informing ourselves, we're just sort of stacking up knowledge, but we're not actually doing anything with it. So I want to notice that and move myself into transformation. The problem with informing is it pushes me into a world of how to. When a client comes to me, they'll say, Dan, my goal is I want to get promoted. I want to make more money. I want better work-life balance. I want to run some big initiative that's happening at work. I want to shift into project management or into finance or into HR. But I don't know how. And I just have to smile inside, because right now, in this day and age, 20 years into the internet, data and information is not our problem. In fact, if it is our problem, we've just got way too much of it. So when somebody says to me, I don't know how, that's not the truth. The truth is, you just don't want to yet. The second distinction is dream versus project. Now, dream is one of those words that sounds good. It sounds, yeah, we should all have dreams. Dreams are good. But I think that's quite a tricky word. And I put it alongside words like wish and hope. They sound good on first hearing, but actually they come from a place of lack. And yes, I want to hear about my clients' dreams, but I do not want my clients walking around with a lot of dreams, some vague longing that's off in some never achieved future. I want them to turn it into a project. And so I give them that question. Is it a dream or is it a project? How do I do that? How do I shift from dream to project? Well, it's very simple. With an action. And it doesn't even need to be a big action. It can be a tiny action. Great book last year written by James Clear, who's a great author and thinker. And he wrote this book called Atomic Habits. You don't need me to explain, it's right there in the title. Atomic Habits, start with that, start super small. And I want to do this because my life, where I'm just dreaming and longing all the time, is shallow. But where I bring it into the real world, into the present moment, that's a project. My son taught me this. My kids teach me so much stuff. But just this last week, about a few days ago, Easter break, we were away, and my youngest son, who is also a Daniel, he said, I want to be a writer. And he went and got a notebook that Mummy had bought. She buys stacks of these things. He went and grabbed this notebook off the shelf, and he went up into bed, and he wrote a story. It was about that long, so about a page, small page, called, let me get it right, The Loot Llama. And if you have children of a certain age and you've heard of the game Fortnite, you might know the inspiration for that. But he wrote this story called The Loot Llama. And now his dream is a project. He is a writer. The final distinction is the most important. It's my favourite. It's the one that underpins everything I've talked about today. It underpins every aspect of my coaching work, and it's reaction versus creation. I love it because it's very poetically anagrams of one another. Reaction, creating, reaction, creation, reacting, creating. And I can use this all the time. Right now, in this given moment, am I reacting or am I creating? Now, we know when we're reacting. We are, well, we're probably angry or frustrated or disillusioned. And we are living life pretty small. Another word to use instead of reacting is victim. None of us like to hear that, but we wake up in the morning and we are victim. We are at mercy to all these outside in from the world. We wake up and we just wait to react. So I really want to notice when I'm reacting, and then I want to create a mind shift. I want to create. Given this set of circumstances, what do I now want to create? And when I'm in creativity, I'm in flow and I have energy and I can take on anything and I can create success out of anything. So I'd love you to use that question. If you take nothing else away from today, it's that question. Am I reacting or am I creating? And given the set of circumstances in which you find yourself, what is the success that you want to create? I hope you found some of this useful. I really thank you for your time and attention. Thank you very much.